Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about an idea that honestly completely flipped our understanding of human development on its head. It's all about how everything around you, literally everything, from your family to the culture you're swimming in, is constantly shaping the person you are and the person you're becoming.
Okay, so get this. Back in 1964, a psychologist named Bronfenbrenner stood up in front of the U.S. Congress and said this. Now, you have to remember the context. A lot of people back then thought your lot in life, especially if you were in poverty, was basically hardwired into your genes. Bronfenbrenner came along and said, nope, you're looking in the wrong place. He challenged this whole idea that our destiny is just written in our DNA.
All right, so how does this whole thing work? Well, that's what we're going to break down. We'll start super close to home with your immediate world, and then zoom all the way out to culture and even time itself. And stick around because at the end, we're going to ask a really important question. How does a theory from the 60s hold up in our crazy digital world? Let's get into it. Okay, Section 1. A revolutionary idea. The subtitle says it all, really. Development as a set of nested Russian dolls. Bronfenbrenner called his big idea the ecological systems theory. And the easiest way to picture it is exactly like that. A set of Russian dolls, one inside the other. Or, like when you throw a rock in a pond and you get all those ripples spreading out.
And this image here, it's the perfect visual for it. You, the individual, are right there in the middle. And you're surrounded by all these interconnected systems. The really important thing to grasp is that it's not a one-way street. Each layer affects the others, and they all affect you. So let's start peeling this onion or opening the Russian doll from the inside out.
All right, Section 2, your immediate world. We're talking about the microsystem and the mesosystem. These are the two layers you're living and breathing in every single day.
So first up is the microsystem. This is basically your inner circle. It's the people and the places you have direct face-to-face contact with on the regular. Think about your own life for a second. Who's in your microsystem? It's your immediate family, right? Your parents, your siblings. It's your school, your teachers, your classmates. It's your best friends, your neighborhood pals, all those close-up relationships. And the key thing he pointed out, which was huge, is that this is a two-way street. You don't just sit there and let this stuff happen to you. You influence these people and places just as much as they influence you. You're an active player in your own development.
But here's the thing. None of these little worlds of yours exist in a vacuum, right? They're all connected. And that connection, well, that brings us to the very next layer of the doll. And that next layer is the mesosystem. Now, this one's a little different. It's not a physical place. It's more like a web of connections between all your different microsystems. It's the relationships linking your home life, your school life, and your social life. Let me give you a super simple example. Let's say your parents and your teachers have a great relationship. They're on the same page, they talk to each other, they're supportive. That's a strong, positive mesosystem, and it's going to make your school life so much smoother. But what if there's conflict? What if your family doesn't like your friends? That creates friction, right? That's a weak or negative connection in the mesosystem, and it can cause a whole lot of stress and difficulty. Okay, so we've covered your immediate world. Now, let's zoom out a bit. We're going to look at the invisible forces, the things you might not interact with directly, but that have a massive impact on your life anyway. This is the exosystem and the macrosystem.
The ecosystem. This is a cool one. It's all about environments that you're not even in, but that still affect you because they affect someone in your microsystem.
The classic example, and it's a perfect one, is your parents' workplace. Think about it. You've probably never set foot in their office, but what happens there matters to you, right? If your mom gets a big promotion that means she has to travel more, your home life changes. If your dad gets laid off, well, that obviously has a huge ripple effect on the whole family. Decisions made in a place you've never been can totally change your day-to-day reality.
And finally, we zoom all the way out to the biggest Russian doll, the macrosystem. You can think of this as the cultural blueprint for your entire society. It's the largest, most distant layer, but in a way, it's the foundation for everything else. So what are we talking about here? This is the big picture stuff. The dominant cultural values, the economic system you live under, the laws and government policies of your country. It's things like societal expectations around gender or whether your culture values the individual over the group. All of this creates the stage on which your entire life plays out.
But of course, none of this is frozen in place, right? The world changes, you change. And that brings us to the final dimension he added to the theory, time. Let's talk about the chronosystem.
The chronosystem is all about timing.
It looks at how major life events, and I mean both personal ones, like your parents getting divorced, and huge historical ones, like living through a pandemic or the invention of the smartphone, affect you over the course of your life. And the key is that the impact of these events really depends on your age when they happen. A divorce, for instance, hits a toddler completely differently than it hits a teenager.
So for decades, this was the model. But later in his career, Bronfenbrenner actually went back and refined it. He felt like something was missing, and he wanted to zero in on the real engine of development.
And what he came up with was the bioecological model, which folks often just call the PPCT model. So you've got person, context, which is all those systems we just talked about, and time, the chronosystem. But look at that first P, process. This was the game-changing addition.
So what did he mean by process? This is so important. He realized it's not enough to just be in an environment. What really matters, what actually drives your development, are the ongoing back-and-forth interactions you have there. He called them proximal processes. So think about playing a game with your brother over and over, or your dad reading to you every single night, or learning a skill from a coach. That's the stuff. Those are the real engines of growth.
Okay, so this theory has been massively influential. I mean, it changed everything. But it was developed in a pre-internet world. So is it a perfect fit for the 21st century? Let's take a look at some of the critiques and modern updates.
One of the big questions people started to ask was, does this model give us enough credit? Some felt it focused so much on how the environment shapes us that it kind of downplayed our own power, our own agency to shape our own lives.
And to tackle that, researchers started adding in concepts like resilience, that incredible human ability to bounce back from tough times, or our knack for social networking, proactively building relationships that help us out. The point is, we're not just passive billiard balls getting knocked around by these systems. We actively navigate them, we build connections, we push back.
And then, of course, the internet happened. And that created a whole new universe, a whole new environment that Bronfenbrenner could never have predicted. So today, researchers talk about adding a techno-subsystem or virtual microsystems to the model. Because let's be real, our online communities, our social media feeds, they are a massive force in shaping who we are today. Which leaves us with this final thought. When you stop and think about it, the ecology of you is way more complex and interconnected than ever before. So I want you to think about those circles in your own life, from your family and friends all the way out to culture and the internet. How are all of these forces, both the ones you can see and the ones you can't, both physical and virtual, shaping the person you are becoming right now?